That's the weird thing about Gen X, especially those of us who are youthful. We will appropriate and also judge very harshly. So let's do the thing, right? So if you're new and you can watch. I mostly just do live now because it makes it really fast, right? I don't have to fucking compress the video, right? But so listen from the beginning, the podcast, then the lives, all of the shit on YouTube from the beginning, right? Or as the title suggests, fucking go retrocausal, begin with the end in mind, right? Because I'm at the end now of the message. The message is delivered. Now it's like, let's take action. So plant the seed, planted, right? Water the ground. That's what is on the fucking docket. So listen from the beginning and prepare your mind and your body to receive by doing Qigong. It not only clears your mind and makes space for the new, but it mends your body, right? It's bathing your body in the energy of the cosmos, which is your energy. So it's an unlimited supply. One time I was playing pickup ball in the hood in New Orleans, and I can't dunk, but I can, right? Because I let go. I didn't dunk, but I blocked a guy off the backboard who was trying to dunk, right? Off the backboard. So you can. The power is available, right? This is the limiting fucking factor. So begin by maintaining your bridge. I'm going to face right towards the camera. Begin by maintaining the bridge, getting in the horse stance, turning your hips under, put your hands in front of the navel, make a bow with your arms, a bow, not an L, and gaze on the horizon, placid face, but not bitch face, you know? Turn your hands out for 3 more breaths. Now come to the middle, in front of your heart, still in a bow, shoulders down, back flat, hips under, chin down. Now in the exalted position, hands in front of the third eye, shoulders down, hips under, without flexing the glutes, chin down, to get that neck in alignment with the rest of your spine. Oh. Always bow with your head up. So it's a little chilly. I lit a fire in here and, well, marginally successful. I've talked about retrocausality before, and right, so let's look at it from the deja vu perspective, right? So we've all had them, right? Who hasn't had one? Fucking bye. So it's like you're living life and suddenly it seems like to your consciousness you've experienced all this before, right? And so perhaps, right, I mean, how you want to look at it, that all time is at the same time, right? But when we're in this realm, this 4-dimensional space, right, the 4th dimension is time. So it makes it visible in a forward progression, right? But that doesn't mean that a backwards progression also doesn't take place at the same time. And so, you know, maybe when you have a deja vu, the time that it takes for you to remember that you've already seen this, right? That interval is how long your manifestations take to come into reality, right? And so you're manifesting on purpose or by default. And so still the same thing, but there's this retrocausal aspect, this aspect of this predictive nature, like you created this through your own expectations and belief, right? And so perhaps that's all we must needs learn in this place that we come to, right? Which is how to fucking manifest. And, you know, again, that's a word that's been fucking way overused in all these different ways and corrupted by the new age, you know. But I think that we all, and this is something again, right? Let's begin with the end in mind, right? Is that we're all missing the mark on that, right? We're all missing the mark because spiritually, right, there is no division, right? There is no fucking skin on your spirit body, right? So to think that your spirit is somehow separate and comes here to learn for its own sake, right, is silly, is it not? Because when you're spirit, right, everything is connected, meaning that there's no end to anything, right? Everything is overlapping. I mean, right? It's the unfathomable. Our cognitive self has to do all these workarounds in order to visualize it, right? But that all one aspect is the transcendental component of the physical reality, right? The component that has an effect on it, but is invisible. I don't know. I'm gonna keep standing. But what is it, right? So how are we missing the mark? How are we missing the mark is to make it into an individual thing, right? A solely individual thing. That is to polarize the polar relationship of the individual and the collective, right? Because what is an individual, right, without relationship, right? An individual in a vacuum, right? How do you define that? Where is the reference point, you know? So there is no individual without the collective, right? And so we are defined by what surrounds us, right, in the physical realm, but also juxtaposed upon that is the transcendental, right? And so what surrounds us is us. So I mean that's my whole fucking point, is that I think that no matter in what camp you are, it's all based on an individual viewpoint, like meaning that everyone's operating in support of themselves. And so you can't not do that, but you can't only do that, because to support yourself, you have to exchange with others, right? Here we are again. So what I always am trying to fucking get across is that that in order to truly reach our full potential, right, not as individuals but as a collective, we have to recognize that is our nature, right? That the objective is that it is for the collective, because that is how we move, that is how we progress, that is the progression, right? There is a threshold that we stand upon at this moment, right? And whether or not we can cross over has yet to be determined. And so, right, in this realm where time seems to travel forward, on all of the future is assembled in the moment, right? So, right, what I'm trying to say is that I think I've explained it pretty well if you've all been following. It's this juxtaposition, this paradox of superposition, right? And so that's how we ride the fulcrum, right? which is where the pendulum is attached to, right? The fulcrum, right? Where it swings from, right? How we ride the fulcrum is we superimpose both polarities of the pendulum, right? And we permit ourselves to be comfortable in the superposition, right? And once we make a measurement, we collapse the wave function. So once we decide as individuals what this is, right, then we choose one polarity, one side or the other, right? And then because of the law of rhythm, the principle of rhythm from the Hermetic principles, which are all properties of waves, right, you will be subject to oscillation, right? And so your position will go from superior to inferior, right, as we move forward. And so it's a checkered fucking reality, you know? And that's why every floor of every Masonic temple is the checkerboard, right? It's the bottom level. It's novice, right? It's the page, right? The idea, right, is to, and it doesn't require fucking anything, right? But the idea is to be, you know, everything that we are, that we always were, always meant to be, which is this retrocausal fucking aspect. And we don't have to fucking progress. We already are. We already are. And so, yeah, it is a switch, right? It's a decision, right, to let go of your own measurement of what you perceive, right? And to say, this is it. You can only say, this is how it appears to be, right? In order to leave space for the new to enter. If you say, this is how it is, then you're just going to oscillate with the opposition of that, right? And this is, right, this is perhaps what we're here to learn, right? Is that we can't fucking not choose a side, right? And think that that is, you know, not defined by the opposite, right? So preconceived notions, right? Thinking, coming into a mode of observation with polarized lenses, right? It's so funny that they call it polarized, right? It's all properties of waves, man. It's like the reason polarized lenses make it so you can see into the water, right, when you're fishing, is because reflections are 90 degrees out of phase with the incident light that was reflecting, right? And polarized lenses block out most of the transverse waves, right? So you can kind of see into the water. Anyway, right, when you come into something wearing lenses, like where you already have preconceived notions, right? This is, I mean, look where I'm walking, you guys. Look at the path I'm treading with my words right now. It's fucking worn. All right, we've been over this before. So, like, why? You know, that's one question I ask myself. And, well, I just come up with the answer that is like, what else is there, you know, to do? You could negate reason to do anything, right? And so this is what we have, right? We have this verbal words, and in order to share information. And so that's what I'm doing. But there's a particular thing about the current environment of discussion, right, of debate, is that there is no debate, right? This postmodern viewpoint is basically saying you're entitled to however you see the world, and I'll see it the way I see it, and neither shall the two meet, right? And in that instance, it's just tribes, right? It's just camps. And that's the pendulum, right? You're choosing a side, and then you're oscillating with the opposite camp, right? I mean, this is described by our government system, you know, the system of elections with the two-party system. So, and it's so obvious that it's fake, right? that it's the recognition of this effect, right, means that you can simulate it, right? You can simulate polarity. And so this is the false polarity that I always talk about. And so, yeah, there's a recognition of this effect, right? Of these laws that are immutable, right? The laws of the universe and how consciousness is irrevocably linked to, right? How our observation of whatever we see, our observation actually changes it, right? It has an effect on it. So there's no way we can avoid self-reference, right? Because we are the thing that we are looking at, right? The only way to avoid self-reference is to permit the totality, right? To is actually to let go of this individual aspect and permit the totality to inform our cognition, right? Because we are here and we are able to fucking conceive of things. We have conception, right? Concept. So yeah, and so it's basically letting go of ownership, right? Which is measurement. and that's what was always meant to be, right? Is this, like, in order to achieve our fullest potential, right? That was already written, right, in the code of the universe, right? In order to do that, right, you have to let go of personal ownership of outcome, right? And so that's our syndrome right now, and it creates this time loop, like this never-ending story, right? And so this is like, of the three things that can happen in self-reference, right? That's one of them, right? Which is this oscillating back and forth, right? It's it's like the program is hung, you know what I mean? And it keeps fucking starting again from the beginning, right? And going around in a circle, right? And so in that video game that was written in the 70s, it's just a simple program. You give it initial conditions, right? It's self-reference. And these rules, right, are applied. Look it up. It's called The Game of Life. And that's one of the things that can happen based on the initial configuration that you set with. So you basically can configure the first pixels or dots that are basically entities in this program, right, on an infinite grid, and then press run and see how it plays out, right? And one of three things will happen. So we are currently in that fucking that hung mode where it's just oscillating between two positions. That's what our civilization is doing, and that's what most of us are doing, like including myself, right? And that's probably this the unhealthy spectrum of that, despite all of us doing it, right, is what they describe as mental illness, right, or manic, where you have extreme highs and extreme lows. But so, right, and that's the pendulum swing, right? And so to avoid that, you get on the fulcrum, and so you do not make any declarations. You only the only thing you can declare is that this is how it seems to be at the moment, and in that way, right, the new can enter, right? And so we can break this pattern. We can actually restart the game. Retrocausality. We can restart it with these new initial conditions, right? And so it's the way each individuation of the totality, right? Each of us, right, operates in relationship, right? That is what creates the aggregate pattern, of which I've spoken of many times. And so, right, we change those initial conditions. The set of rules by which each individual operates in relationship, right? And in order to do that, it's actually just an inversion, right? It's a flip. You just flip it, right? So everything is upside down. This is what they say, you know, in the truther movement, right? Up is down, black is white, you know, like everything is inverted, right? And right, an inversion of our nature, an abomination of our true nature, right? Which is um, um, that if you live to serve, right? Because if you live to support the collective, right, then you will be granted life, right? If your action is to support, right, is to exchange value, is to make things better for others, right, then you will also be uh, granted that same benefit, right? That's our nature. And, you know, it is at this point, it's like, oh, I've heard this before, right? It's the competitive versus the cooperative argument, right? But you'll notice, right, that the competitive, right, is what we operate by. The competitive notion, right, that progression is made through competition, right, through winners and losers. And that's the only way innovation happens. And so right there we have, right, it's obvious, right, that that's how we're operating, right? And so what I'm saying is that that's an upside down. That's an inversion of our nature, right? Our nature is actually to cooperate, right? And it's to provide value to others. And that is the impetus, that is the motivation for innovation, right? For novel innovation, the creation, the entry of the new into the totality, right? Which is our unique gift as human beings. It is the desire of an individual to be able to provide value for others, right? And benefit from that value themselves, right? By creating it, right? By being of value. Right? And so we all have this. We all have these unique abilities. We're all unicorns in our makeup, right? But we all have something to offer. And and so it is that's the motivation, not to survive, right? But to actually live, right? Not to avoid death, right? But to um, go after, to pursue living, you know? And so that is the rewriting of the initial conditions. That is the reset of the game of life, right? And so we avoid this hung position, which we currently are in, right? But which does have a limit, right? And the limit is, right, self annihilation, right? Or the perpetuation of this blip cycle, right? Of this hung cycle, right? Which would be that we actually do fucking start to live in a constructed world, right? A, you know, metaverse, so to speak, right? And that'll perpetuate the system and automate it, right? So that we will be stuck. It's not the outcome, right, that we want. And if you are at all informed, then you can see this happening right now. This is like the objective, right? Obviously, it's not self annihilation. But the third option is this ever expansion, right? this ever expansion outward into the future, right? And so the pattern, right, that we create on aggregate would be that expansion. And instead of repeating the same pattern, as I was saying, we move forward into new ground, uncharted territory continually, right? And this is what was always meant to be, right? This is our purpose. This is the universe fucking allowing a novel admixture into the creation, right? Because there's no other, right? If you look out into the universe, all these rules, all the hermetic principles are in operation continuously. And so it's our particular fucking gift, right? Is that we have this connection to the totality, right? We have souls, we have this divine spark, and we have the ability to manipulate our environment, right? So why not fucking design it, right? Why not design it in alignment, right? Which I was speaking of last time, and I want to talk about that a little bit more, but in alignment with the polarities of nature, right? The ones that actually exist instead of the ones that we make up, right? And that creates this blip cycle, right? This hard self-reference, right? This purposeful self-reference in order to create a fucking perpetuating cycle. Yeah. So the aggregate pattern, right? Aggregate pattern, new initial conditions, right? A new configuration to the start point, right? A fresh start, right? Would create the third option that we desire, right? This is actually our purpose. Our purpose is not to fucking automate a system that just runs. It's a feedlot, an automated feedlot, right? Obviously there's a controller to this system, right? Are you seeing what I'm saying? And basically we already have it. It's just that it'll get into the nth degree of its, of the outcome, which is full automation, right? So, right, we don't want to upgrade our feedlot. We are the fucking animals in the feedlot. We don't want that. We want to be free, right? And freedom is the first step. It's not an objective. There's no steps to be taken towards freedom. Like, this is what we are. But this thing about alignment, though, like, so if waves are in alignment, right, then there's positive and negative reinforcement, right? So the peaks get bigger, right? The amplitude, right? When you have two waves that are same wavelength, right, in resonance, then the amplitude, they construct on the positive and the negative, right? And so super highs and super lows, right? So alignment, when we think of alignment, right, it's what we want is these interference patterns of the waves of energy, right? That is the totality, right? We want it to combine in a way, right? That it isn't, right? So these are the patterns that our society exhibits, that civilization exhibits. It's the same, right, as everything. But if we actually are in alignment with a set of false polarities, right, then that is the pattern that is created. We want to be on the fulcrum as individuals so that these disturbances, right, are not made more complex. Right? These disturbances are not a noise on top of the foundational interference pattern that is the fucking universe, you know. And so yeah, it's like, so alignment is like, this is one of these buzzwords that I you know, that I've been looking at more recently, because like when two lines are aligned, like that poem I read last week, they never meet, right? They never intersect. When planes are parallel, then they never touch each other, right? But waves, right, when they interact, it's a different deal, right? And so full alignment, full resonance, right, is a raising of the amplitude of the emanation, right? So yeah, I mean, I can feel that it's like hard to take in. Begin with the end in mind. Freedom is first. It is the beginning and the end. Well, yeah, right? If you've heard me talk about the flute, right? So it has the lower octave, and it's hard to get. And I can only play it, right, when I'm on the fulcrum. But that is like an approach. It's close, right? It's the higher next pitch up. And so you can see, right? It's kind of a gauge, right? A spirit gauge of the effectiveness of my rhetoric. So consider this, right? That we can, right, design this, right, where the aggregate pattern comes out in, so we can progress, right, and cross over this threshold, right, and get into uncharted territory, right. And so our civilization, right, can exhibit a pattern, right, that permits the embellishment, right, the admixture of novelty into the totality, which is like the first principle. The entirety is mental, right? It is mind, right? It is one mind, right? And that seems to be right. If there were beings, right, higher dimensional beings, that when we human beings first came on the scene, however that happened, you know, whatever, you could see how they could be, they could find themselves being envious of us, right? Because we got hands, we can touch stuff, we can experience this shit, we can feel it, right? When you're an energy being, right, you are it, the whole thing. And so it sparked this, right? This is the fallen, right? The fallen. This would be entity that would become a digital god, right? If we permit this, the agenda to occur, right? The plan, right? Because it's a feedlot. Who's getting fed? And so that like jealousy, right? That envy, right? Is the representation, right, of individuation, right? Which is this separation. And so you can see how that signifies a fall from grace, right? So I'll leave it at that for now. Much love. Just love. To you guys. Stay tuned. Yeah, you know, stay tuned. More to come. More to come. And right, it's all in the live, right, on this channel at the moment. There will be more, but that's where you find, right, the new stuff. And so use the interface, right? Go to the live, because they stopped putting the new lives on the video list, right? Unless I edit the lives and make a copy of it, it doesn't go on the video list, the straight up, you know. It will be on the home for a little while, but you got to understand the interface, right? And if you want what you want, then you have to navigate right to it. Don't let the interface fucking do it for you. But yeah, it's a training, right? It's not a practice. And it permits you to flip that switch, right? The Qigong on the out breath, when you're extending, you can feel the silence, you can feel the connection. Right? And yeah, the power, right? Power versus force. Power. Till next time.